the morning there was some, not in proper time, but there was some good remark about Huineng. Who was the one who started? Huh? Someone said that, yeah, it was a very interesting remark. We should, it will clarify the Pragya Paramita. We are reading every day Pragya Paramita Sutra. So you should understand the Pragya Paramita method. It is much easier to misunderstand it than to understand it. So you should ask and ask and ask, and I should try and try and try to get a clarity. So one should ask at proper time. Now is a proper time for discussing these things, get clarity. So someone has objected or remarked. What was the remark in the morning?
You were saying like the sixth patriarch, Liu Zhou Huinan, because he had a very simple life, and so he doesn't have that much affections, worries, and things like that. And then he attended the natural nature, the Buddha nature, whatever. And I thought our Chinese Chang, the modern Chinese Chang, people always think like, a lot of people say, we don't have to study sutra. We just don't think anything, don't do anything, don't think about anything. Then the Buddha nature will automatically come up. It's something already, so everybody possesses that Buddha nature and is automatically with us already. And so I thought that was not a good idea.
Not at all good idea.
Not a good
so
idea.
Many people confused.
Right. They
Yes,
don't study.
True.
Yeah. So that's what I.
But you should understand the Pragya Paramita method. The Pragya Paramita method is not at all the contradiction, and it is very so often misunderstood. It is not at all contradiction with the Agama teachings. It is support for the Agama teachings. So the Pragya Paramitas actually speak very little about the Buddha nature, or almost no mention of Buddha nature. The Pragya Paramita Sutras, as translated by Xuanzang and Jimolojo and so on, you will hardly find any mention of the Buddha nature. You find a teaching of the natural nirvana, Prakriti nirvana. This natural nirvana is not actually identical with the Buddha nature. So now the method of the Pragya Paramita is, and you should understand it very well. Maybe we should think of some. It is very important to study the Pragya Paramita properly. The Subhuti, who is one of the main receivers of the Pragya Paramita teachings, he asks Buddha, since the Pragya Paramita teachings we are reciting every morning, essence of Pragya Paramita teaching, emphasize that everything is emptiness. Because everything is emptiness, how is it not a contradiction with the teachings that one attains the Buddhahood gradually? So how can one attain the Buddhahood if the everything is emptiness. There cannot be progress in emptiness, in this sense. But the Buddha answers the Bodhisattva, because he is contemplating emptiness, he goes over through all the stages of the Bodhisattva until the attainment of Buddhahood. This is a Pragya Paramita method. So the contemplation of emptiness and the gradual path is no contradiction at all. The teaching of the Pragya Paramita is that the contemplation of emptiness is the most convenient, skillful means for realization. That's all. It does not emphasize that all beings have the Buddha nature. It emphasizes that the nature of the mind is illuminous. That's just what the Agama say. So it is very important to understand that all these teachings of cultivation of the paramis and so on, they are not emphasizing that the Buddha nature, but they are emphasizing that the cultivation of the paramis comes from the continuous practice of emptiness, which then leads to the real understanding of the nirvana being the natural state of all beings. And being a bodhisattva, if one aspires to become a bodhisattva, one cannot separate one's mind from the mind of the others. So one is training in seeing this luminous nature of mind, this natural nirvana, even in all conditionings. If one believes the Buddha nature is something that one can hold to, then it is completely against the teachings of the Pragya Paramitas. Because a skillful means of Pragya Paramitas is precisely no element in our experience can be held to. And that is the meaning of nirvana. And this is what is to be realized precisely by the practice of Samatha and Vipassana. The Pragya Paramita practice joins the Samatha and Vipassana together. So let us discuss some more. Peter.
After the children are 18 years old, the parents' responsibility is already over. So,
who said that?
One of my those
This is one idea.
Yeah.
But
so because so many parents, they are taking care of the kids up to even 30, 40, and they lost their own life. So anyway, the continuity of Buddhism is only with the presentation with ordained sanghas. So
it is with?
I mean, 佛法是要有僧众才可以传佛法。So
that means we have to penetrate deeply. Only then we can teach the Buddhism.
在家人也不好去传佛法，就是僧众是代表佛嘛，所以that's why I'm asking Venerable can give us some advice why all those parents they should try to be ordained and and it's a real become a sincere student of Buddha if you are really trusting in
yes, it is true.
And,
it is true.
Yeah, and in the while you are explaining that, can you also give us some super clever tricks of the asura?
Asura.
Yeah, those the demon, the
Demon,
Mojin, yeah. And we're always underestimating their power. We all most of us are in the trap. Okay.
So the world is a very complex and very complicated. So we should never try to impose one solution to all problems. If we do that, it means our wisdom is not very much developed. We should always try to understand each and every case being special. Not try to impose one measure on all. This is the mentality of fools. And this mentality has done so much harm in our world. In religion, in politics, in our modern history is the history of incredible suffering because precisely of this mentality of I myself, I have grown up in a communist or socialist country. So this is precisely the mentality of putting everything in one sack, and it has to be like that, if not. So this is very dangerous mentality. So you cannot say that after when the children are 18, the parents are no more responsible. This is a very dangerous thought. But Buddha himself, and Buddha is the example of the mankind for us, being the Buddhist, he has abandoned his only child practically after birth, which is from the point of view of the social ethics, it is non-acceptable. But he has done it. And the Buddha has also taught, if you read the Dhammapada, there are sayings like, unless you kill your father and kill your mother, you will never attain realization. The commentaries interpret it, unless you kill the greed and ignorance, but who knows? If of course, if you want to realize the Buddhahood, we are not Buddhas because we cannot drop everything. When we have dropped everything, we can become Buddhas. Now, dropping everything is very, very difficult. And one has to learn to drop step by step. If you're not ripe and want to drop everything, you will only be frustrated. The Buddha, when he decided to drop everything, he was ready. Now, and he was living in the conditions that he knew if he leaves the world, there will be many, many people to take care of his child, of his education. He had no problem, financial problems. But the society, the stability of the society is based on the mutual relations between the parents and the children, and the loyalty of the children to the parents, and again the duty of the parents for the children. These Confucian values, they are not nonsense. They are very important.
As a matter of fact.
Well, I will finish. So the Buddhism is teaching. In Buddhism, there is place how to become a good human, like Confucianism, how to become a divine being, like Taoism, or the practice of yoga, the deep samadhi, and there is also the teaching of ultimate liberation. All these three teachings are there. And actually they are complementary, these teachings. It does not, you cannot become a Buddha unless you are a good being and unless you become like divine being. So it is very important to become a bodhisattva. If you want to become a Buddha, the bodhisattva path, the bodhisattva goodness is based, the scriptures are teaching, on thorough understanding of cause and effect. We can only become bodhisattvas when we thoroughly understand cause and effect. The Buddha became the Buddha because he understood the cause and effect much more deeply than his disciples. Therefore, he is not just an arahat, he is not even a great arahat, he is not even a first disciple. He is Buddha in the sense that his understanding is complete. And the complete understanding is complete understanding of the cause and effect. The practice of the bodhisattva is not to harm anyone, but to benefit oneself and all beings in the same way. If one can do it, then even abandoning one's family is all right. And what was the second question? Negati Arawenti?
Yeah, the major question is, the major question is ask your kindness to tell us why we should not become a monk or nun.
I never say we should not become. We should become, but only when we are ripe.
Right. Okay.
When we really feel that actually to be a true monk is very difficult.
Yes. But there's tremendous merit if you become a monk.
It is really not very useful to become a bad monk.
Oh, okay.
To become a good monk is very difficult.
But at least he had tried, a change. Is that true that is it the Northern or Theravada they can cancel to be a monk and be a layperson and become a monk like 7 times?
Yes, it is true.
Oh, see, that's good.
There is Okay, I will tell some nice story because today is informal. You will find a pension kush, Jataka story about this. The Bodhisattva, or our Buddha, was not always born in good circumstances. In many previous lives, he was born in very bad circumstances. But he, different from us, is that even born in very bad circumstances, he could always learn from suffering. Most of us are born in bad circumstances but do not learn from suffering. Because the Buddha could learn from suffering, therefore suffering became his supreme teacher, therefore he became Buddha. The suffering is the opener of wisdom. So, in compared to us, the Buddha did not try to avoid suffering, he tried always to understand suffering. So, in one of his previous lives, Buddha was born as a completely possessionless farmer. He had nothing, and he had to struggle for miserable life only to fill his stomach due to one hoe, chuto. Chuto. Hoe it is called, no, in English. Hoe, right? So all he had was just one hoe. That's all his possession. And because his livelihood was dependent on that, he was hired as a farmer by other peasants who possessed land. So he was very attached to his hoe. Everywhere he carried it with him because his livelihood was dependent on that. So he, as somewhere he heard some Dharma teachings, he decided to renunciate. So he hid his hoe because he was so attached to it. He hid his hoe he made a hole, and under a tree he hid his hole. Then he went to the Himalayas. Go. So as he was in the Himalayas, sitting in some cave, what happened? Always thinking about always thinking about the hoe he has hidden under the tree. So finally he gave up and returned back, and and again he started to fight for livelihood with his hoe. And again, second time, he was not satisfied. What is his life good for? Just suffering and only like a slave working for others. What is life about? So second time, dig a hole, hid his hoe, and went to the Himalaya. So he 6 times he did the same thing. Now the 7th time he again thought, I better commit suicide, and again so I have to renunciate. So he decided, in order to not to come back, now I rather die than come back. He asked a boatman to take him to the middle of the river and drop the hose there. And he started shouting, I am victorious, I am victorious. And at that time, by chance, the king was taking baths at the bank of the river. So he hears someone shouting, I am victorious, with a big voice and very happily. So he becomes very curious. So asks one of his officials, you catch that boat there and ask, bring that man who is shouting, I am victorious, bring him to me. Tell him the king wants to see him. So the poor farmer has to go to see the king, and the king asks me, whom did you vanquish? You have not even clothes on you, just a belt. And what did you vanquish? You have no arms, no. He said, I vanquish my greed. So that king became very, very impressed. That king was, of course, no one else than Ananda. And he left his kingdom and followed with him, went with him to the forest. So it's a very nice story. So 7 times, you try 6 times. It still may churn in your mind. The 7th time you will become victorious.
It's about the super trick of the
Asura. Yeah, the Asura or the Yaksha. Normally the people who do not have faith or who do not meditate, they do not see these beings. Only those who meditate, they see these kinds of beings. So actually, it is not a bad thing at all to see them. It is a certain sensitivity. So usually nowadays in a modern society, if people have these problems, in countries like Sri Lanka, I have lived a long time in Sri Lanka, or in Burma also, these things are very common because people have faith. And it is very common that suddenly they see some yakshas because they project their defilements into some concrete form. Like the Avalokiteshvara is the projection of the pure form of compassion. So these beings, they are kind of projection of the devil we all have in ourselves. So you have to have faith in order to see it. And you have to have, or you have to meditate in order to see it. When you meditate, so all kinds of symbols, it is very important to understand the mind of concentration is a deep mind. The deep mind is very close to bhavanga, or to base consciousness, to alaya. That is the consciousness where we have stored millions and millions of our previous experiences. We don't know what we all carry. So that is why when one meditates and does not protect one's mind, the mindfulness is not enough, suddenly all kinds of visions can appear. from consciousness. It is very common. And many of you might have experienced that. So that is why it is so important to not to forget the meditation object. Otherwise, this vision can get hold of the mind. I have myself lived for some years in different hermitages in the forest. Many monks also have these problems. They believe that they are being, because they visualize in different things in meditation, they believe that they are being pursued by some evil power which wants to harm them. It's quite a common thing. So, according to Buddhism, there are 4 kinds of Mara. Very important to understand them. There is a Mara of death. This is the most stubborn Mara. There is the Mara of the 5 aggregates of clinging. Then there is the Mara of our defilements in the mind. And then there is a Mara, a kind of divine being, which wants to prevent us to go to the sphere of more subtle perception. All these Maras, actually, they are kind of the forces that prevent us from getting deep into the understanding of the nature of the world.
What is Mara in Chinese?
Mo. So, if one uses this, if one uses these beings to open one's understanding, then they become the Dharma protectors. So actually, if one can understand the Mara as it really is, it becomes in a way, the helper to one's understanding of the process of liberation. Why? It is very important to understand the real Samatha and Vipassana is not possible without facing obstacles. All those who have succeeded in meditation, they have succeeded because they have faced obstacles, and these obstacles led to opening of their wisdom. Without obstacles, no wisdom. So, it is very important in the process of meditation to learn how to use obstacles in order to open the wisdom eye, the Dharma eye. Then one will eventually reduce fears and become fearless. All fears have to do with attachment to oneself. There is no exception. And all fears have to do with the greatest of all fears, the fear of death, which is due to the mara of clinging to the 5 aggregates, due to the defilements. So, if one understands it in this way, then one will follow the example of the Buddha and become friend, like Buddha became friend with all these evil beings who wanted to obstruct him. So, due to his unthinkable compassion, even his arch enemy who has been trying to harm him for innumerable lives, his cousin Devadatta, finally takes refuge in the Buddha. Even so, he tried to harm him for many existences and killed him many times in previous life. Why? Because Buddha never treated him as an enemy, he always treated him with compassion. So this is our example, how to deal with the obstacles. These innumerable obstacles that Devadatta made for Buddha became his eye-openers, Dharma eye-openers. And he became Buddha because he learned from these obstacles. Never hating his enemies. This is why he became Buddha. Okay, now discussion starting.
我觉得有一个问题应该澄清一下。
你可以翻译成英文哈？现在。
我觉得刚才有一个问题，还是应该澄清一下，让他翻吧。刚才Peter师兄说了，好像弘法是出家僧人的事情。
Okay, just okay, just.
这个话，我觉得好像有点佛法，你应该这么说吧，就说。
I think he did not mean， 他不是这个意思，他的意思是，就是方便而已，对不对？当然，在家人也可以弘扬佛法，那个没有障碍啊。
就是佛法的话，恐怕也是，因为我知道微波节气是的，但是很多佛法是，你不是出家人不可以做的仪式，你不是要这些东西还是要出家人做。
出家没有错，是好方便来修行，那个没有错，当然。不过也在家人有的时候在家人能够讲经比出家人好。
但是他们不知道戒律的 details， 你不是出家，你不可以知道什么戒律，那都是。
这是其实是汉传佛教是这样解释，南传佛教我有的时候。常常不是有的时候，在缅甸那些在家人，他们 对戒律比出家人还清楚。汉传佛教才有这种规则，在家人不能够学戒律。我记得，因为我也不是特别对戒律有兴趣，我常常我去托钵，那些在缅甸在家人教我怎么穿衣服的。他们比我们出家人还清楚。
The main question to be clarified is whether it's limited to the ordained monks to be spreading the Dhamma, or maybe a learned person, lay person, if he's very advanced in his learning, can he spread the Dhamma too? And Shifu said, yes, it is okay. If the person is very learned and very good in very good practice, he can do that too. Sometimes they can do a very good job spreading the Dhamma. And also in another angle, an ordained monk, they know the precepts very well. So at least they can teach that part better than a lay person. Shifu said, also that's not necessarily 100% true. And he gave an example when he was going arms around in Burma. He visited some families, and they actually, the lay people actually taught him how to wear his robes properly. Okay, so actually they seems to know the precepts better, something like that. So.
Can I go back to Heart Sutra?
Okay.
Can you explain how our mind functions when it neither arises nor ceases?
This is the teaching of the Pragya Paramita Sutra. Since the nirvana is a natural state, nirvana is a state where the nature of the world is impermanence. Impermanence means that the all phenomena of our experience arise due to causes and conditions and cease naturally as soon as they have arisen. This is very important. This experience is very important. If you don't have this experience, then you will not really be able to go deep into the meaning of Buddha's teachings. The first seal of Buddha's teaching is impermanence. If there is no teaching of impermanence, it is should not be considered as the Buddha's teaching. The second seal is suffering. The real suffering is not just that we have some pain. The real suffering is to experience, a noble suffering is to experience the suffering of impermanence. That is the suffering of the noble ones. To understand that all formations actually are suffering, because their nature is to arise and cease in each and every moment. That is the second seal. The third seal of the Buddha's teaching, if it is not there, it is not the real Buddha's teaching, is that whatever is impermanent and suffering cannot be the self. And the fourth seal of the Buddha's teachings is the bliss of nirvana. Understanding the non-self means to understand nirvana. So the only way to nirvana is to understand the selfless nature of everything that we experience. Because everything has selfless nature, it is in the state of nirvana. So the Buddha explains the nature of the world as dependent origination. Dependent origination is everything we experience in the world. Dependent origination, real understanding of dependent origination is that the cause, the law of cause and effect arises and passes away in one moment. This is the nature of the world. If it was not like this, then the nature of what we experience would be not moving, but it is always moving. All that we experience inside and outside is always on the move. To understand this selfless nature of this is then understanding the peace of nirvana. That is the meaning that the arising is non-arising. And non-arising also it is cannot be defined as non-arising, because non-arising is also something not fixed. Nothing is fixed. The state of nothing fixed is a state of peace. The emphasis of the Pragya Paramita Sutras is that because all phenomena are selfless, therefore the necessary conclusion is that all phenomena are in the state of nirvana. That is why Buddha explains the beginning of dependent origination by ignorance. that what we experience through ignorance is not real. Because we believe it is real, we are holding to it. Because we are holding to it, we are producing ignorance. So, which was first, the eye or the chicken? The samsara is this circle. Through holding, we are producing ignorance. Through ignorance, we are producing holding. So, we move from one state of existence into another. But this is not the real nature of the things in the world. It is by the Buddhism emphasizes that the only liberation is through understanding the real nature of the world. Not to impose any concept on it. And not to take anything away from it. Because the nature of the world is such that you cannot impose something on it and take something away from it. That is a middle way the Buddha has taught. And middle way is beyond existence and non-existence. This is taught even in the Agamas, not only Pragyaparamita Sutta. In the Kachayana Gota Sutta, the Buddha explained the middle way as transcending existence, notion of existence and non-existence. The notion of existence and non-existence is precisely due to clinging. So, the Buddha explains, if there is no clinging, there is no self. The self arises from clinging. And the world arises due to self. Both world and self are actually concepts. They are nothing to be held to. If one understands this, one will be very clear about the meaning of Buddhism.